You started daydreaming just for a minute and then 2 hours passed and you didn't even notice it. You're not a romantic, you're not a lover girl. You're doing a behavior that your brain has trained you into a compulsive loop. And the scary part is that the more you do it, the easier it becomes to disappear in it. As somebody with ADHD, I've struggled with that for all my life. In this video, I'm gonna give you the methods that worked for me and they're gonna work for you. What does maladaptive daydreaming mean? Maladaptive daydreaming is when you spend hours inside of your fantasy world. The fantasies feel more real and more rewarding than your real life. You can't stop even though it ruins your sleep, your productivity, and your social life. And while normal daydreaming is brief, it's flexible, and it doesn't interfere with your normal life, it mostly takes minutes. Maladaptive daydreaming really does affect how you get your tasks done and if you do get them done or not, and when it literally hijacks your brain too. You're not alone in this. It usually happens to people that are imaginative, highly intelligent, but their life lacks the stimulation that they need. It usually comes from childhood and is way more common in people with ADHD, OCD, but it also can be tied to chronic loneliness, anxiety, or emotional neglect. And willpower doesn't work because in maladaptive daydreaming, there is one common mechanism for most people. There's trigger, there's trance, and there's reward. So the trigger can be lying in your bed, not being able to sleep. It could be listening to music, could be loneliness, romance content, arguments, or simply boredom. Then there comes the trance when you start daydreaming after your trigger and you can't stop. And then there comes the reward, which is the dopamine that you get. After that, there's usually guilt and a repeat loop. So let's get straight into the methods that really work. And this method is not as tangible as the second and third methods, but it's the first step in identifying these behaviors. It's mindfulness. And when people hear mindfulness, they think about candles, soft breathing, and all of that. But no, this is attention control training. Maladaptive daydreaming is basically that your attention gets kidnapped and your job here is to bring it back. So every time you want to daydream on this stage, you don't have to stop the urge, you have to note it. I would suggest keeping a journal for it. Digital works too, to see what triggers you have, because it's not a focus problem, it's a trance problem. And because the time when you daydream passes extremely fast, you don't even notice how much of it it's eating. Here's what nobody tells you. Mindfulness alone is not going to get you to a place of being free from that. You also need a map of your triggers. Here comes method number 2, self-monitoring or tracking. Tracking is not just journaling, it's data collection. Because maladaptive daydreaming is not random, it's very predictable. And predictable means that you can combat it. Every time that you daydream, you're going to write the duration, the trigger. Third thing, you're going to write the emotion under it if you can identify it. It could be even boredom, it could be anger, it could be anxiety. And the fourth thing is that you identify what specific task did you avoid while you were daydreaming. Most people see episodes when they're sad or when they're watching romantic content, they're stressed, and this is a form of procrastination. And in this journal, we're going to identify some of the rules. I'm going to reveal my personal rules that I use to stop my daydreaming in method 4. You can skip to that part. But before that, if you want a little bit more of the psychology of it, let me tell you method 3, cognitive behavioral therapy loop breaking. First of all, you have to get the habit of not responding to your urges with commands. And while it's very hard for you to completely avoid the urge, it's easier to delay it. You can give yourself a period of time. I will daydream in half an hour. I will daydream after I do 10 push-ups. And the second thing that you could do is to replace the emotion that you want to get from daydreaming. For example, if you want comfort, before you start to daydream, you tell yourself, I'm gonna daydream after I get some tea and I take a warm shower. Or if you feel like you need stimulation, you're going to replace it with something like exercise. And the third thing that you can do, you can also ask the question before you start daydreaming, what am I trying to avoid? Identify it, see it, and then proceed to choose if you want to do that or not. Here comes the method that instantly reduces episodes without the inner work. Method 4 is trigger control and rules. So the next part that we're going to be talking about is trigger control. The rules that I'm going to give you are the ones that work personally for me. I've never heard anybody else talking about this. My first rule was no sitting daydreaming. I identified that my comfort was in the position that I was sitting. It was the same lotus pose. If I want to daydream, I'm going to do it while moving. A run, or it can be simply standing up. And this while not blocking your daydreaming so it doesn't feel like the forbidden fruit, it still adds some friction. It's gonna make you a little bit more hesitant to start doing that. Suddenly it becomes less cozy and it's more, why am I even doing this? You get more conscious of it. Rule number 2 is absolutely terrible, and it's reduce music, especially when you're alone and nobody can look at you. So at least for 2 weeks, you limit music as much as it's humanly possible. I remember the year when I was prepping for my university entrance exams, I cut off music for around 9 months, and I would never listen to it because I knew that it took so much time, because it was the biggest trigger for daydreaming for me. And my university exams went really good because I had so much more time and I had less of those creative, romantic, imaginative thoughts that I had with music as the main facilitator of it. If you need audio, use background noise or a podcast so that your brain can't drift into those thoughts. And music is a huge part of my life. Still understand it can sometimes be as addictive as nicotine, alcohol, or scrolling. And the next one is something that people don't want to admit and disguise as culture, and it's watching romantic content. You want to read those books, you want to watch that movie or Netflix show, but it's just feeding your daydreaming. So what we do is you avoid romantic content when you're alone, you limit it, and you replace it with more nonfiction. And the last rule that I set for myself was changing my environments. So I wouldn't do anything in bed other than sleeping. I would try to avoid being alone too much and would try to get my tasks done when somebody's around me. So now that we're finished with the rules, let's move on to method 5. Fourth thing under your maladaptive daydreaming is understand why you're doing this. For most people, it's either anxiety or ADHD traits like needing stimulation or constant dopamine chasing. It's OCD loops. Sometimes it's just chronic loneliness. It becomes your self-medication. So after you've done all the previous steps, you have to start fixing your life. And this is very simple, but it all starts with fixing your health. So your sleep schedule and exercising, because this keeps you more focused on your tasks than working on your social circle, eliminating people that are making you even more lonely and trying to find new people. Also, you can start keeping yourself more busy, like, more tasks that you're passionate about and you don't want to escape from. Starting a creative task, starting a new hobby where you can meet people. So let's do this challenge. For 7 days, you follow all of these methods and you tell me what changed. So if you want a simple plan, 10 minutes of mindfulness daily, tracking every single episode in a journal or a note, no sitting daydreaming, limiting music, romantic content, 2, playing, and trying to live a more vivid and a more interesting life. I'll be completely honest, I've eliminated it as a habit. I still like to do it from time to time. Maybe you have some tips that I didn't mention. Feel free to write that in the comments. And if you want more self-improvement content, you can subscribe to my channel because that's what I do all the time. I promise you it's gonna be fine.